calling that, get the pledge of allegiance.
Everybody go to the text, please. Dear Heavenly Father, again, we just thank you for the opportunity to come before you, Lord. We just thank you so much for this wonderful community that's with, Lord. Again, thank you for everything that you've done for us. Lord, we pray for wisdom and knowledge that everybody's making decisions tonight, dear Lord. Lead, guide, and direct them in the way that you would have them to go, Lord. Again, forgive us when we fail you. We ask all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Ms. Cox, can we get the roll call, please, ma'am?
Counselor Davis.
Here.
Vice Mayor Mills is absent. Mayor Warren.
Here.
Counselor Upton.
Here.
Counselor Kirby.
All right, with 4 of us here, we've got a quorum. Let's move on to the consent agenda. Item 5, approval of minutes of regular council meeting, December the 5th, 2022. Item 6, approval of the treasurer's report. Item 7, approval of the December 2022 payroll figures for the general fund in the amount of $110,272.73. Item 8, receive claims of City of Eufaula. Council?
I'll make the motion to approve.
I'll second. Okay.
Counselor Davis.
Yes.
Mayor Warren.
Yes.
Counselor Upton.
Yes.
Counselor Kirby.
Yes.
All yes, that item approves. We'll move on. Item 9, consideration of acceptance, approval, adoption, rejection, amendment, and/or postponement of the fiscal year 2022 audit as presented by Arledge and Associates. Mr. Jones.
We have the volunteer with Arledge and Associates. She's going to make the presentation on this year's audit.
Okay.
Hi, good evening. I'm Ladonna Singh. I'm one of the partners with Arledge and Associates, and we are your external audit firm, of which we thank you for the opportunity to work with you and appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. You should have 2 reports. One of those is your financial statements, so the prettier one. The other one is only from us, and it's your, what I would call your single audit. So I would like to start there because I don't know, it's a little bit more difficult one to get through sometimes, a little bit more complicated. You have a single audit because you expended more than $700,000 in federal money for your year ended June 30, 2022. So that's what drives a single audit. It's not unusual for the city of Eufaula, but that's what drove that this year. Because of that, we do this whole extra report. You have 2 letters from us that come in that report. So right behind the table of contents, you have the first letter, which is what we refer to as a yellow book report. We issue that anytime we issue an audit under government auditing standards. That walks you through any problems we have found with internal control over financial reporting or on compliance. Neither of those is an opinion. It's rather us pointing out if we did see something, but it's not a search for things, if that makes sense. So it's not something you can rely on that, oh, we scrubbed your internal controls, but rather that while we were doing the audit, as things come to our attention, our report those back. So that's the first one. And then behind that, you have what we call the UG report. That's the report under the uniform guidance that is on the single audit. And there is an opinion in that report on compliance with the compliance standards required for major federal programs. As well as, so that's an opinion, and then there's a report on internal control over those major federal programs as well. So when I use an opinion, that means we're saying we believe it is or it is not. When I say a report, that means we're telling you what we saw without issuing an opinion. So behind that second letter, you have what we refer to as the SEPA, the Schedule of Expenditures of Federal Awards. And that's the list of all of those expenditures of federal awards. And again, this all hinges on what you spent, not on what you received in grant money. So you may have received a lot more or a lot less than this, this is what the city spent. Some footnotes behind that. And then you get to about 4 pages from the back, the schedule of findings and question costs. This is a standard form. This is in every audit. It might look a little different if a different auditor does it. This is not something we pulled together just for you. But you have the schedule of findings and question costs where we walk through what findings we had, where there weren't any findings, and what major programs we looked at. So when we do a single audit, we have to figure out which grant programs we're going to audit. We select those based on a risk assessment as well as the size of the grant. This year we looked at your airport improvement program, and we also looked at the Water Smart program. So those were the two. Behind that, then, there are a couple of findings, and that's what I wanted to draw your attention to with this, and then we'll move on to financial statements. The first finding is under those government auditing standards. That has to do with segregation of duties. This pretty well is in your report always because of the size of your city and the size of your finance staff and the inability to really segregate duties in what we would consider an ideal way. And it's in here as a reminder to the city council of your responsibility for oversight and for being aware of what's going on within your city. And knowing that you don't have a large enough city to really segregate all of those duties. So to be involved and be aware. It's not an issue that we found anything, but rather just hey, you know, your staff is small. These things aren't segregated as well as they could be. And then behind that, there was one finding under the uniform guidance that had to do with the Water Smart grant. That was a reporting requirement that was missed. That was corrected once the city became aware of the reporting requirement under that grant. Nonetheless, we have to bring it forward as a finding because, well, we found it. Ergo a finding. So that is your single audit report. The very last page behind that, you see any findings from the prior year and the disposition of those. Any questions on the single audit before we talk about the financial statement audit? It's simply called a single audit, by the way, because you used to have to audit each federal grant alone, and they changed it to just one big audit, choosing major programs. That's why it's called a single audit. So, single audit of federal monies.
When we're talking about the small number of office employees, what would be the recommendation to bring somebody, another staff member, or somebody to correct this problem?
Well, I think it becomes something that the council does a risk-benefit, cost-reward sort of thing around because of the expense of hiring someone else versus the risk of not segregating every duty ideally. This is not unusual for a town your size to not be able to fully segregate duties. What some other cities have done, comparable cities, is they've used the council to get a little more involved to help with that. And we can talk about that, offline, or I can visit with Valerie about it, of how you might can overcome some of that in other ways. But using the consulting firm that you use that helps get you ready for audit every year is one big plus on your side, that you do have other people coming in and looking at things. And then, like I said, I view it as a heads up to the council that, hey, in your monthly meetings and as you get your reports and as you know what the expenditures are, pay attention to those things.
Okay, thank you.
Does that help?
Yep.
And like I said, we can talk about that further too. But I don't want to take everyone's time tonight if we can.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Yeah, you guys look like you may be here a while, so I'll just go fast. Your other one is your financial statements, and these are issued by you. The Crawford firm helps you pull those together, they draft them, but they're working on behalf of management. All right, so just be very clear about that. The only thing that Arledge owns in this report is that opinion, that's the independent auditor's report on page 5. And the only thing in this opinion that I would draw your attention to is that your financial statements are on the cash basis of accounting, or rather the modified cash basis of accounting. They have been for some years, that's not new, that's not unusual in the state of Oklahoma, again, for a city of this size. Some larger and certainly the ones smaller are pretty much all on this basis, but it is something that gets pointed out in your opinion so that you understand that. Aside from that, behind that, if I was going to encourage you to read something about the city's financial statements, that management's discussion and analysis that starts on page 7 and runs for about 7 pages, that is your management summary of the year. And so it tends to be a little more user-friendly. It's certainly a lot more brief. So if you're not going to read the entire thing, maybe read those 7 pages. If you would like for me to speak to your financial condition, I can. If you don't want me to, that's up to you guys.
Council?
Yeah, I mean, could you give us like a condensed?
Yes. You did have an increase in your net position, which would be like net profit if you were in a for-profit business. So in other words, the city did improve its financial position for the year ended June 30, 2022. In total by about $1 million. Be careful when I say that though, because you've got to look into that and see how much of that is restricted money, that's grant money or something else that's not readily available to be spent at the city's will necessarily. But it did improve. So that is a good sign. Your business type activities, which is your water, sewer, sanitation, economic development, continue to operate at a pretty significant loss. Not unusual for Eufaula. You guys typically do. You transfer money to your business type activities using sales tax revenue to help cover that. But that's kind of a summary of how Eufaula works. So again, it's cash basis, so I want to caution you that liabilities are not on these financial statements. So you don't see long-term debt booked here. Those are back in the footnotes, and probably something I should have cautioned you about with what's the difference between modified cash basis financial statements. So you can look really good here because it's got your cash. It doesn't have fixed assets or depreciation or debt in here. So that's kind of what you're missing. Now let me flip back here and I can tell you real quick where to find that information. Yeah, on page 36, you'll have a summary of the city's debt under a note titled Commitments and Contingencies. So like I said, it's important that you understand fixed assets are not on here, neither is the debt. So it's easy to get carried away with, oh, it looks like we have a lot of assets without considering the burden of the debt payments. questions about that for me?
Council? I guess not.
All right. Well, thank you again. I think you guys do a good job, and we appreciate the opportunity to visit with you tonight.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, back to item 9. Consideration, acceptance, approval, adoption, rejection of the annual postponement of fiscal year 2022 audit as presented by Arledge and Associates. Council, what's your pleasure on item 9?
Make a motion to accept it.
I'll second.
Councilor Davis,
Yes.
Mayor Warren,
Yes.
Councilor Upton,
Yes.
Councilor Kirby.
Yes.
All yes, item 9 carries. Let's move on to item 10. Consideration of acceptance, approval, adoption, rejection, amendment, and or postponement of the fairgrounds lease between the city of Uvalde and McIntosh County Fair Board. Mr. Jones.
So the Fair Board, through the McIntosh County Commissioners, approached us about renewing the lease. They are in the process of doing some upgrades to the OSU extension and NRCS offices out at the fairgrounds. In the course of doing their research, they found that the existing lease that they thought was in place was not in place. In 2014, it had been placed on an agenda with the county, been approved by the city council, placed on an agenda with the county, with McIntosh County, but it had been rescinded. At that point, it never was brought back to council. It was never addressed. And so, as they were doing their due diligence to look at those improvements they wanted to make at the fairgrounds, they found that this lease was not current. And so this action will take and bring that lease before you. That way you can have a vote on it. If you pass it, then what we'll do is we'll pass a copy of it to the McIntosh County Commissioners, who will then review it and approve it for the McIntosh County Fair Board. But it's just to get a current lease in place. At this point, there is not for the fairgrounds.
Has no one been paying on that lease since?
It's only a $10 lease. It's not about the money or anything like that. It was just. So my
You said
recommendation.
it, just go ahead.
Just review it, and it's just a standard lease. I've already had it to the county, they've already reviewed it and sent it back to me. They were good with it. Kay's had it and reviewed it. She's good with it. And so at this point, it's a point of getting a vote so we can get it approved and move it to the courthouse for that.
I'll make a motion to approve these to accept the place.
I'll second.
Councilor Davis,
Yes.
Mayor Warren,
Yes.
Councilor Upton,
Yes.
Councilor Kirby.
Yes. All yes, that motion carries. Moving on to item 11, consideration of acceptance, approval, adoption, rejection, amendment, and or postponement of resolution 23-1-1 declare an election for city council seats in Ward 1 and Ward 2 pursuant to the requirements of state law and the McIntosh County Election Board. I'm making a motion to approve.
Councilor Davis,
Yes.
Mayor Warren,
Yes.
Councilor Upton,
Yes.
Councilor Kirby.
Yes.
All yes, that motion carries. Let's move on to item 12, consideration of acceptance, approval, adoption, rejection, amendment, and or postponement of resolution 23-1-2 to amend the City of Uvalde Code of Ordinances, Chapter 24, Section 12-2400. Definitions to include metal siding as an allowable metal building material for the outside exterior finish of a structure within the View Falls city limits and to amend the City of View Falls zoning code, chapter 4, section 410, permitted principal uses, use condition related to the use of metal siding as an allowable building material for the outside exterior finish of a structure within the View Falls city limits. We have quite a few people that would like to speak on that. This is how the cards were handed to me. Mrs. Daniels, you're up first.
I just want to take the time to ask for some consideration in this particular thing, that as in the past, it's gone through the planning and zoning, and I know it's been on a case-by-case basis in order to keep the integrity of the neighborhoods, because it's hard pressed to have a really nice historic home and then have something next to it that doesn't even match the whole surrounding homes. So in approving this or looking at it, I would just like to caution, I'd just like to ask, I have property, I haven't done anything with it, but if I choose to in the future, I certainly would like to be able to know that each one of the things that I do, and I would have to be held accountable for, that somebody coming in and wanting this type of a structure would also have to be held accountable for, to keep the integrity and the surrounding homes to be all in common grounds. So that's my position and asking. I like how it went through the planning and zoning. I liked how it was a case-by-case basis, because then it could be looked at, it could be, everything can be compared to what's already in that area to see if it's conducive. And I really liked that particular method versus just a blanket, anybody gets to do anything they want kind of thing. So that's just what I would like to say.
Thank you, Ms. Daniels. Mr. Hunt.
And I just want to speak just a little bit over this as far as planning and zoning. I'd like to see planning and zoning, continue to work real hard to be able to oversee and overlook all the metal that's going to be done. And it was talking the other day, and I have two metal buildings on my property here at Funeral Home. One of them has siding on the front of it. And whenever we redid all the siding on the funeral home, we redid the siding on that as well. And so it was kind of weird for all that siding to come off and us to drill holes back into that perfectly good metal building to put the siding back up. It was like, oh, we can never line that back up. It was just a mess. So, I have a whole bunch of holes in it. If we heated and cooled that, it would be an issue. So with that being said, there's no difference in vinyl siding compared to metal siding or aluminum siding. You can't tell the difference. And also sit there and think that just a couple years ago, we had somebody come in front of y'all that wanted a cargo box house. And y'all turned them down flat, said, nope, not gonna have it, not gonna do it, not gonna entertain it. And, these kids already bought, $100,000 worth of cargo containers. And not that that's a bad thing, because we've seen enough, shows on TV that they can make something absolutely beautiful and unique out of that. And that was not considered for a minute. So that needs to be, going back to planning and zoning, there needs to be a write-up on what it's gonna look like, maybe architectural sketch drawing, and also sit there and think about Porches and Pastures, their new building. It's a beautiful building, and they have a grain bin on the side of it, and that would not qualify to be built in the city limits of View Falls, as it stands now. And, it'd be a shame if they wanted to build something like that, that we would not be able to have that. So, because all that's metal on the side. That's it. That's my thoughts.
Thank you, sir. Mrs. Campbell.
Good evening, councilors.
Probably as most of you know, I'm a realtor here in Eufaula, have been for a long time. And I sell property around our lake. And a lot of the reason that people come here is they like the charm of some of our neighborhoods. Over the last year, we probably sold 12 old houses, and most of them were in pretty bad condition, marginal at least. We found buyers, and each of those buyers have redone everything from electrical, plumbing, roof, gutted, redone. But as far as the outside of the property, they kept the aesthetic of the neighborhood, which I think that's important. Almost all of the nice neighborhoods in and around the lake area all restrict their covenants. Are all restricted to no metal homes. It's really hard to monitor what somebody's gonna do with a metal house. I see some really nice ones around in some areas, but, somebody else's idea may be to put 2 Davis buildings together, and that's metal siding on the outside of that. So I just worry about if those requests are not looked at individually, and that's the reason that we have a planning commission to look at things like that. I just think that's important that we don't start allowing our neighborhoods to become less than what they could be with metal buildings. All I have, I just think that you should really think about that. I see the good, the bad, and the ugly around this lake area, and there's a lot of ugly. And there has been in the past lots of ugly inside the city of Eufaula, and the city has cleaned up a lot. Kudos for the city. We have definitely been on the rise, and people want those older houses now. I have an old house on Broadway that's 82 years old, so I'm very proud of that. My neighbor wanted to buy the house and have it torn down because the city had condemned it, but it's a pretty nice house now, so thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Rossi?
I too want to reiterate the sentiment that it's nice to be able to do this on a case-by-case basis. And that's where I think that the rules stand right now with planning and zoning. And as you know, I was on planning and zoning at one point in time, and we do a lot of work, we do a lot of homework. And they really inquire with the neighbors, with other people, with builders and realtors around the area. And so when they make a decision on something, they've really done the work. And I'd like to encourage you to keep standing with their recommendations because they service us well. And that's why we institute that committee, is to be another component of our community that has a say on our neighborhoods. So I encourage you to stick with what they've done. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Gully?
Evening, everybody. Thank you guys for taking our comments tonight. I just wanted to, as someone who has bought one of the older houses here in town, and over the last several years spent, a lot of time and treasure redoing that house. I think the worst possible scenario would be for someone to come next door and build a metal building next to my house or a metal home. Because, as the realtors can tell you, and just about anyone who's trying to sell a house, the neighborhood makes a difference. And I know that those of us who have lived here a long time have seen by the codes that we've put into place and trusting our planning and zoning commission to make the decisions when there can be a variance that's not going to mess with the area, the neighborhood. And I would like to see us continue to trust them to make those variances when it's applicable, and to we have the privilege of living in a town that has a lot of historical homes and a lot of historical value. And while mine has the heritage and I didn't take it back to its original condition, we were able to take the outside and keep with the historical value and modernize it on the inside. So I would just like you guys to really consider the fact that this may be going backwards rather than just taking and allowing our planning and zoning to make those decisions and doing due diligence to find out what that neighborhood is going to, if they're going to accept that or not. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Mr. Jones, I'm gonna put you on the hot seat now, and then on council, we're gonna discuss a little bit.
So give you my thoughts or just a
What,
little bit of history?
well, I would like to know what exactly how y'all have drawn up what we, so they'll know what we proposed of on our decision that we made last month.
Okay.
We're not trying to take anything away from planning and zoning.
So this discussion started probably four months ago, back in September. It started with a conversation between planning and zoning and Mr. Upton and Mr. Warren. There was actually two conversations. We met with them, we discussed, is siding good, is siding bad? Do we need, what kind of aesthetics do we need to make sure that we address in order to make it a viable product that can be used in our town? We discussed whether, do you have a facade? Do you not have a facade? If you have a facade, how high should it be? What percentage should it be? If you're gonna have a metal sided home, does it have to have eaves? Does it have to have rails? Does it have to have a porch? Type structure. So we've tried to address all those issues to actually address what some of the concerns was, is how will it fit into a neighborhood? Okay. We don't want to do something that's going to create a featureless structure, just like when you see a metal shop building out behind in a pasture, anything like that. That's not what we're after. We want it to look and blend in to what the neighborhood is. The metal siding has a long life. If handled properly by building code, it will be just fine, in my personal opinion. I don't have a vote in it, but in my personal opinion. And so in this ordinance, the way we addressed some of that was a metal sided house has to have a porch. It can be a shed, a hip, or a gable roof porch, but it has to have a porch. It has to have 8-inch rakes, 12-inch eaves, just like a standard house will have. Then it comes to facade. So we were debating on, do you cover the full face of it, street facing, in between, backyard? How do we do that? So what we determined was, I say we, the council, the discussion with planning and zoning, that there would be a 30% facade on 3 of the 4 sides of the house. Street side is mandatory. So if you have your house on the street facing side, has to have a facade on it of a minimum of 30% of whatever that height of that exterior wall is. So trying to, to keep it, to make it look like a traditional house. All right. Well, because you get the same thing if you have a vinyl sided house. You can get facade on a vinyl sided house, and there's nothing wrong with that. I don't have a preference one way or the other, but we tried to address all those things to make sure that it will fit the neighborhood, that it will be constructed according to building code, that yes, they do have to bring a set of plans to us of what it's going to be so that we can research it, make sure that everything is according to code when they file for their permit. So, what we're doing here is started back in September. We've had a lot of discussions, in open meetings and, at least four,
3 or 4.
3 or 4 open meetings. So we tried to do our due diligence to make sure that, you know, folks had a chance to come in and offer their input. And so this is the product of that. So,
Council, is there any other questions? I make a motion to approve 12A.
I'll second it.
Counselor Davis,
Yes.
Mayor Warren,
Yes.
Counselor Upton,
Yes.
Counselor Kirby.
Yes.
All yes, that motion carries. Let's move on to item 12B. Approval of emergency clause for resolution 23-1-2 is listed in above agenda item 12A above. I make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Counselor Davis,
Yes.
Mayor Warren,
Yes.
Counselor Upton,
Yes.
Counselor Kirby.
Yes.
All yes, that motion carries. Let's move on to item 13, consideration of acceptance, approval, adoption, rejection, amendment, and or postponement of item A, renaming South Point, Peters Point to Nichols Point. Mr. Jones.
So I've been, for South Point, I've been approached by Kenny Beal, and we're looking at doing some improvements to South Point, bathrooms, dock facilities, pavilion facilities. And the conversation came about possibly renaming South Point, Peters Point to Nichols Point. It's in honor of Don Nichols, who had a large hand in some of that funding and whatnot. But I'm going to let Kenny step up and talk a little bit about it, give a little background.
Mr. Bill, thank you.
I'm not very prepared, but I'm in prepared because I've been doing this a long time, but been working on Nichols Point with Don Nichols for 10, 12 years at least, maybe 15. We raised, Don and I raised $125,000 to get money, local money and Callister money to redo that whole area. We got a grant from the wildlife department for $600. We had the end of $600,000. It was for a pavilion, it was for courtesy dock, it was for boat ramp, it was for bathroom, it was for new parking, that was all included in that $600,000. Well, we were, I don't know how to say it, we were cut short. So we've not let that drop. I'm not let that drop. Don has since died. Don Nichols is responsible for the dock that's there. It was his money that put in the dock. Don and I put in the water that's over there. That was Don Nichols' money. I have secured 1,000 concrete blocks at no charge to the city or anybody else. Granted us a Dolisi concrete. And they've done that because they have a lot of their employees that come here to fish, and they thought that was a good donation for them. They've done that. Twin Cities is helping us to do the septic that we're going to put in. I can't tell you exactly what that figure is, but I did get some help, and I'm going to get some help there. The bathrooms we are ready to put them in. I've got the what do you call them, the vaults ready. They're ready to be set. Concrete blocks are in your yard, ready to go. And the money that paid for the freight to get the concrete blocks here was Don Nichols' money. So this is not coming from Don Nichols' family. Okay, it's not. They're not asking for this. This is all Kenny Beal at a suggestion to the city that Don has put so many hours of his time and effort and money into that point. I think it is a good reason to put his name on it. And with that, I will tell you that the Nichols family has guaranteed me $100,000 to construct a new pavilion, take the old pavilion down that's there and put up a new one. As long as we can do it within what we can raise. And we have not forgotten or forgiven the thought that we can put a new boat dock in. The boat dock that is there, what we'd like to do with the one that's there is move it over to the east, make it a fishing dock, and then put a new courtesy, not really a courtesy dock, it'd be actually a tournament dock that would hold 18 boats, so fishermen could come in, tie up, weigh in the fish, and then go get in their boat and go back, but to give them a docking area. The dock would be shorter than most docks, so for that reason, it would be shorter. I have gotten designs already done on that. I've got bid from MDI. They've been very gracious on that. But Don has put a lot of time on this deal, a lot of money. And South Point is a great name, I guess. Peters Point, at some point, I'm sure that was a good name, but I think Nichols deserves to have their name on it, and that's my suggestion. And if you all see fit to do that, I promise you the Nichols are getting ready to put some more money in this deal. So I think it's a big, I don't know if y'all, how many of you know, but one time Don had owned the where Yogi Bear is. He also owned the
Amphitheater.
yeah. So
Don was a great man.
Don's a great man.
I enjoyed working with him.
He really, that was kind of his dream to see this facility developed. We did get all the parking done. We fell short on some of the issues. I will tell you, the boat ramp, we put a berm out there. I know Todd, you were around when that all happened and all the dirt didn't get out, but I can tell you that happened last month. So Tubby came out and drove his backhoe out and got that berm off of there. So we can launch boats there without any issues, and we haven't forgot about it. They haven't forgot about it. I haven't forgot about it. We're going forward to try and make that a very, very nice pavilion launching area, tournament location for Eufaula. And I'm telling you, the bass tournaments, I don't know if some people are good about them or not happy about them, but I'm gonna tell you, they bring millions of dollars to the city of Eufaula. Millions. A guy comes
I've seen
down
it
here.
firsthand.
I'm sorry?
I said, I've seen it firsthand.
Oh, no doubt.
I mean, the restaurants are packed,
Yes.
so. Motels, hotels.
But I'm gonna tell you, our facility right now does not jive good enough to bring the big people. Gary Nichols himself, which has about 240 tournament boat, can't have it on Eufaula because they don't have facilities. And that's where we want to go. He wants to bring that back to here. So that gives you, and again, it's not Gary or Randy. Nobody in the family has asked this to be done, and they even said, I don't care about that, but I think it's what we should do. Any questions?
Council?
What did you mean when you said there was $600,000 that it was cut short?
We had Don and I raised $125,000, and it was a matching fund grant with the wildlife department, okay? To do all these things. Don and I went to the city of Eufaula. Is this okay for me to go through this? You might as well know, everybody needs to know. We went to the city of Eufaula and had the city council to agree that nothing would be paid for unless Don or I signed off on it. Okay? Don and I never signed off anything. The ramp didn't get done properly. Nothing happened the way it's supposed to happen. And if you'll go look at your parking lot over there now, there is a drainage in the middle of that parking lot on the east side, and it's holding water. It was not supposed to hold water. I complained about it. They went and put a 2-inch pipe. They drilled a hole and augured out the side, put a 2-inch pipe and a drain in there. That was gonna be the fix. Well, that ain't the fix, because it still holds water. We spent so much money and so much time, and they paid those people that didn't do that job. and our $600 went down to 40.
One other question. There's also every year a wakeboard tournament.
Yes, sir.
Will this affect negatively,
Make it better for them.
make it better?
I mean, it's gonna make it better for everybody. I mean, we've even now, I'll tell you this, but this is one of our thoughts. If we build this, if we get this new pavilion built, we even thought maybe we could put some pickleball courts in there, have a double use deal, so, that would be another function of it, it would be even covered. We thought that'd be kind of a cool deal. Don't know if that's gonna happen, but that's a thought that we come up with, and I think it would be a pretty neat deal. The pavilion theirs now is about 40 by 60. I think Gary wants to build about 100 by 80, something like that, much bigger, much taller. We want to match the bathroom. The bathroom that we're getting ready to construct would be like a 3-hole women, 3-hole men. Nice deal. I like what we do.
Good, thank you.
Any other questions, council? Mr. Bill?
How long do you think it would take to complete the project?
The bathroom?
Yeah.
I'm waiting on the city.
What about the project, the whole project as a whole?
It's about money. The bathroom is, I got the money for that. The pavilion, I've got 70 to 80% of the money for that. The boat dock, we may have to have the city help us. I'd like to put a sign out, what says Nichols Point. The sign, I think you've got a picture of it there, yeah. And that is kind of going along with what the state's doing. If you go to Fountainhead, you'll see that sign. If you go to any state lake, you'll see that sign. That's kind of their new sign. And I'd like to do that across the street where you enter Nichols Point, and then a similar one pointing there to the north. We'd like to do that. That's kind of where we're at right now. But, as far as the boat dock, it's a big number.
Do you have a ballpark number on that?
I'm
Do
sorry,
you have like a ballpark number on that?
about 100 and, off the top of the head, I'm gonna say about 160,000, is that what it was?
I think it was between 175.
Okay, it's pretty good amount of money. But, we're gonna address that when we get there. But at this point, I have to say, the city's not ever put much money in there. Not on anything. It's been probably free to the city. Boat ramps and all.
Any other questions? No other questions?
Thank you all. for
Thank
your
you, sir.
consideration.
Thank you. I make a motion to accept item 13A, renaming South Point to Nichols Point.
I'll second.
Councilor Davis,
Yes.
Mayor Warren,
Yes.
Councilor Upton,
Yes.
Councilor Kirby.
Yes.
All yes, that motion carries. We'll go to item 13B, locating a sign on the southwest corner of 1210 Road, Highway 9, Fairgrounds, identifying Nichols Point. Which council, y'all all got a picture of it, like Mr. Bill was talking about. I think it's a good looking sign. I make the motion to approve item 13B.
I'll second.
Councilor Davis,
Yes.
Mayor Warren,
Yes.
Councilor Upton,
Yes.
Councilor Kirby.
Yes.
All yes, that motion carries.
Thank you all.
Thank you, sir.
I appreciate it.
Item 14, remarks and inquiries by city council. Mr. Davis. I don't have any, Mr. Upton. Mr. Kirby.
Just that remember, Council Vice Mayor Nancy. Just in your thoughts and prayers, please.
Thank you, sir. Anyone have any announcements? Okay. Item 16, Need a motion to adjourn out of the regular city council meeting?
Mayor, I'd like to make a few comments.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so kind of to provide an update on, this is off my city manager's report. This is in the packet. So we are still continuing to move forward on the fire station. We have the final plans for the station are complete. I received them last week on Friday. We are working with engineering firm to make sure that we properly site the pad for the building and also deal with any potential stormwater issues that there might be with the site. And also the driveway permit that we'll have to do through ODOT to get access off the highway. So we're working on that. Kenny talked about the bathrooms. So we put together, we have a design for it, we put together the bid package. Like he said, Delisi has donated all the cinder blocks. I think there's 1,000 of them, 1,000 cinder blocks. That should be enough to take care of everything that we need. The vaults are made. We're going to set the vaults, the city will. And then we're in the process right now of bidding that out. We've got it advertised. So the goal is to open those bids towards the end of this month. And if everything looks right, then we'll need to you for approval in February for that bathroom. That's the plan. The splash pad, okay. Splash pad bid documents have been completed, and we're currently advertising for the splash pad right now. We have had really good response. We've probably had 4 or 5 different contractors inquire either at City Hall or with the engineering firm about the splash pad. So I think that's good. You know, more bids is good competition. Good competition is lower pricing. So, just to let you know about that. So as everyone knows, we had the storm this past weekend or the weekend before last, I'm sorry. And we had an issue with storm sirens. Emergency management responded to the storms. We're on site monitoring. When they went to activate the sirens, they didn't go off. So after some research, we found that we had a radio repeater on the tower up at the top of Swadley that had failed. So we ended up getting Muskogee Communications come down, diagnosed the problem. We worked with the county and the commissioners, and we partnered in that, and the repeater was replaced. Storm sirens were checked, all 4 worked. Moving forward, we are going to test the sirens the first Monday of every month at noon. And the reason we chose Monday rather than a Saturday is if we have an issue and we test it on a Monday, we have the opportunity to get parts and get it repaired. If we test it on a Saturday, it's going to be down till Monday, and then you're in scrambling in an emergency type situation, and there's no guarantee that you'll be able to get the parts when we need it. So, so I think we're good to go there. We're going to be doing some. We came in here a couple months ago and we freshened up the community center, replaced the ceiling tiles, did the painting and everything. So starting next month, first week of February, we'll be in the senior side doing the same thing. And we're going to go in, pull all the ceiling tiles down, replace them, put fresh paint up, and give it, freshen the facility up. And that way it'll be a much nicer place, much cleaner place for our seniors to use and enjoy. And then the last thing is, as you all know, we had the outages with OG&E. And, it affected everyone. It affected homeowners, it affected the city. We had the jumper that burned off and some wires burnt at Sonic at Main and Forest. They responded well, got it going, but there were some other issues that they didn't pick up. We were able to work with our former OG&E municipal rep, who actually retired and was in Colorado when I was calling him. And he told me, got me in touch with who I needed to get in touch with, and we were able to get the crews back open, get everything taken care of, and get everyone's power back on. But the one important thing I want to make sure that everyone understands, especially if you're an account holder with OG&E or any utility service, we're here to support and help. We'll do anything that we can. But it's very important, it's critical, that if you have an outage, you need to notify OG&E or ONG. Whoever it is, you need to notify it, because your address, your account numbers, how your account's tied to certain phone numbers, they can look you up. Because that gets you on the map, so to speak, so they know where they need to respond to. And it's just critical. And that number, I'd like to tell everyone the number for OG&E for their outage reporting. It's 1-800-522-6870. 800-522-6870. So, but we'll do anything that we can to help, but, we need you to help us too.
So this OG&E problem or issue affected the lights around Lakeshore Drive?
No.
It's a different thing.
Those lights, they're recorded. Okay, we've recorded them. They fixed a small section going out to Love, but we still have a section from, basically Old City Hall out to the cemetery that needs addressed. Lakeshore Drive needs addressed. We have 8 lights downtown that need addressed, so they're aware. They're aware. And do anyone have?
Anybody else have questions?
That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. All right, I move on to item 16, adjournment. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Councilman Davis?
Yes.
Mayor Warren?
Yes.
Councilor Upton?
Yes.
Councilor Kirby?
Yes.
All yes will be adjourned at 6:28 PM. Regular city council meeting. All right, we'll move on to Eufaula Public Works Authority. At 6:28 PM, Ms. Cox.
Councilor Davis?
Here.
Vice Mayor Melvin absent. Mayor Warren?
Here.
Councilor Upton? Here. Councilor Kirby?
All right. Forums here, we've got forum. We'll go on to consent agenda. Item 2, approval of minutes, regular meeting, December the 5th, 2022. Item 3, approval of the December 2022 payroll figures for the Eufaula Public Works Authority in the amount of $42,477.15. Item 4, receive claims, Eufaula Public Works Authority. Council?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Councilor Davis?
Yes.
Mayor Warren?
Yes.
Councilor Upton?
Yes.
Councilor Kirby?
Yes.
All yes, the consent agenda is approved. Move on to item 5, consideration of acceptance, approval, adoption, rejection, amendment, and/or postponement of pay application number 28 from Lone Hickory Cattle LLC in the amount of $223,925.25. I make a motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Councilor Davis?
Yes.
Mayor Warren?
Yes.
Councilor Upton?
Yes.
Councilor Kirby?
Yes.
All yes. That carries. We'll move on to item 6, consideration of acceptance, approval, adoption, rejection, amendment, and/or postponement.
Did I leave it? I left it empty.
We left something out there. I was starting to say, well, wait a minute.
I just says,
Well, let's go back to this here. All right. Well, I'm looking forward here on
They got a German on
Yeah.
the agenda. So actually, there's not an item 6.
it? No, there's not, no.
Well, I couldn't find it on my
I
iPad either. I
forgot to
thought,
delete that.
I got confused. All right. Item 7, I need a motion for adjournment out of the Utah Public Works Authority meeting.
I'll make the motion.
I second.
Counselor Davis? Mayor Warren?
Yes.
Counselor Upton?
Yes.
Counselor Kirby?
Yes.
Oh, yes, we are adjourned the Utah Public Works Authority meeting at 6:31. Thanks, everyone, for coming.